Hello, everybody. My name is Kent Dahlgren. I'm with 214 Alpha. I wanted to take you through our latest sprint review with the customer and talk a little bit about the process, but also you'll see sort of a preview of our marketplace capability. The sprint review is part of the Scrum Agile methodology, and if you're accustomed to modern software development, you will be familiar with it, but a lot of people aren't. I mean, you know, in this brave new world of decentralized technologies, people talk about Web 3.0, but they still do a lot of really traditional development methodologies, such as what's called waterfall, and you end up having an idea about what you want to do, and then you spend entirely too long actually implementing it, which turns into bloated budgets and bloated timelines, and it's where you end up with $150 million engineering projects that could have been done for far less cost and with outcomes that are more directly tied to the customers' needs. So, you know, what we do is put together a regular release cadence. It's about every 1 to 2 weeks, and in our case, it's pretty tight. And then the engineers can't release anything unless it has at least one new functionality of value to the customer. And then to make it even more difficult, it's actually demoed by the engineers to the user itself, right? Which actually closes the feedback loop. So, what you see here is Andrew's our developer out of Ukraine. Actually, that's Borzan there on the top. Andrew's doing a demonstration. He's in his development environment with an emulated session of an iPhone, and he's demonstrating, our digital identity and verification. It's a simple example of what we could do. And we start small, then we build out from there. And so, there in the middle, you've got Trudy. She's our product owner. She represents the voice of the customer. She is actually not technical. She comes from the domain of occupational therapy, and she is really accustomed to focusing on what a person needs versus what they want. And then she takes the observations she gains from these experiences and other conversations and turns them into requirements that are expressed in the form of a story that go onto a story wall, and then the engineers pull the stories off of that, do development, and then we do have another release cadence. So, what Andrew's demonstrating is, okay, hey, somebody has created an account and they want to request access from what Seed calls a pod, which is essentially a DAO. And the DAO on the right there, you'll see there's an administrative interface, and the administrator of the DAO would review it and say, okay, yeah, all right, I'll let you in, or not, right? Again, this is a simple functionality. We've actually added some stuff that's not demonstrated in here, like for instance, to be able to say, hey, I'm claiming to be Andrew, but I just want to let you know that I am the Andrew who I claim to be, because you and I had a conversation around a campfire that could have you only know this information if you would have had this face-to-face experience with me. So, and so there's a lot of really cool identity verification functionality you can do that really emphasizes high-fidelity face-to-face interactions that don't really require technology, but we can do technology too. So in any event, here Andrew's talking through the functionality that has been added in this latest release, and again, what we do is that in each release we add additional functionality. In the most simple form, we do sort of an end-to-end test on it, what's called a system test, and to make sure that all the unknowns have been identified, and then we add additional functionality through the story process I talked about. So in this case, last week we released inventory, which is a foundation to commerce. If you go to a grocery store, you have, let's say that you're looking at orange juice or you're looking at cucumbers and you want to buy some, and then if you do, say you buy 2 or 3, then the inventory is actually automatically decremented by that amount. And so oh, and then here I'm talking about there's a meme where cats are terrified of cucumbers. You could YouTube this. Cats, cucumbers on YouTube. Anyway, cats are scared death of them. No idea why. But anyway, we work really closely with Seed, and as a consequence, we end up developing a lot of inside jokes that really allow us to, leverage humor to overcome conflict and really just tighten the team up. But, we also get a lot of high fidelity feedback in that, we're working with the product as it's evolving with the user and the customer. And in this case, Seed is an interesting customer in that they actually have people that are already using this DAO model. They actually spent time in Colombia and set this thing up. So this is not a theoretical thing. This is a real life thing. These are people who have created an inventory, and in the context of the seed DAO model, these curators of inventory are called gardeners, master gardeners, and so they'll curate this inventory, and then over time, and actually what we're working on now is slotting in the first version of what we call banking, which would be at first a simple wallet, and the wallet is the ability to purchase that item, sell that item, et cetera. And then by virtue of the platform we're using, which is blockchain, we actually can add some really sophisticated capabilities in there. We could add crowdsource funding, so people could do a crowdsource event in support of being able to pick up inventory. You could technically do payment plan, you could lease it, you could auction a capability. A lot of that stuff is really actually fairly straightforward to develop once we've built the infrastructure. So a lot of what we end up talking about are those sorts of possibilities, right? Like, as Andrew clicks through this capability, Ed, this is the customer of ours, gets to look at it, he can think about, well, what about this? What about this? And then he'll add additional capabilities, and he'll add more requested capabilities, and then we continue to augment our roadmap in alignment with what we're learning. So, it's a pretty good process. I like it a lot. I've been doing software development for a really long time. I guess 20-something years, and so I went through, more than that, I guess, but I went through the waterfall process, and I found that it really just blows up the budgets, and I like the Scrum Agile methodology, although I have augmented it with a lot of stuff from the user experience domain to make sure that it really meets the expressed needs of the user. And it really just begins in a conversation. We have to actually begin with, what is it that you need? What is it you want? But what is it that you need? And, what we find is that a lot of the communities we talk to, they're already trying to piece together an architecture in support of an economic and governance self-sufficiency. So, what they'll have is they're using Telegram, and then maybe they're using Facebook for their communication, and then to facilitate financial exchange, they'll do Venmo. Actually, I had this really great conversation with somebody here in Austin. A guy was talking about there's an exclusive community of service workers, and what they'll do is they use a secret Facebook group to kind of get to know each other, and you got to be vetted, and you got to be recommended to be in there, and then they'll pay each other, for services using Venmo and that sort of thing. And so that's a really great example. But when you listen to it, is they end up having like 5 different technologies that they have to maintain in order to put together this exclusive community. And the value prop that we have is that we integrate all that stuff, so it's a single user experience, and then the customer gets to focus on actually building the community as Seed's doing. So an additional function benefit is that the usage of the financial platform necessitates transaction fees, and a lot of those transaction fees actually go back to our customer, and that actually makes each DAO technically profitable, depending upon how they have architected their local economy and their governance model. That's actually a final point I want to mention, is that the governance, most of the governance that you'll see in our platform is actually unseen. It's and that's by intent. It's policies and procedures, standard operating procedures, which are defined in alignment with the values of that particular culture. Roles and responsibilities, who does what, who doesn't, straightforward, and access and permissions. And when you add all those in, and you're basically building soft guardrails around what constitutes what's appropriate, not appropriate within that particular community. What are the norms and that sort of thing. And once you've added reputation, quantitative measure of performance into the mix, then you can start adding in things like, okay, well, we're going to vote you out. You said you'd be a good steward of our DAO, but you weren't, and this other person might be a better, and so we're going to vote this person in, or whatever, right? But we don't need to build a replication of the European Union on software, because, that's not the problem we're trying to solve. We're trying to help small, discrete communities be successful on their terms, and they don't really need overblown governance. They're not playing Model UN, right? So anyway, this begins with a conversation. Just give us a call and just talk about the needs of your community, and we'd be more than happy to have that talk. It's a lot of fun for us. Cheers.